Here I am, retired early at 51, and I'm telling you, you shouldn't do it. You must think I have done lost my mind. Here's a guy who got laid off from a 19-year career, who's always talking about how great retirement is, and now I'm telling you, you shouldn't retire? What's wrong with him? Nothing's wrong with me. Well, maybe a few things. But hear me out. If you've watched enough retirement videos on YouTube, you've probably heard the same advice over and over. Retire as soon as you can. Life is short. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And after retiring at 51, I actually agree with a lot of that. I don't think people should spend their entire lives working just because society says they should. If you've prepared financially and you're ready for that next chapter, I think you should enjoy it, sure. But I also think there's a side of early retirement that doesn't get talked about enough. And that's what this video is about. I want to make something clear. I'm not saying people shouldn't retire because I think work is amazing and everyone should keep working longer. I actually loved my job. After 19 years, I had a career I was proud of. I worked with people I respected. I had a routine, I had purpose. So when I decided to retire after the layoff, it wasn't because I couldn't stand another day at the job. It was because I felt ready for a different chapter. But I also know that's not everyone's experience. For some people, retirement represents something bigger. It's leaving a stressful work environment. It's escaping a job that drains them. It's finally having control over time again. And I completely understand why the idea of retiring as soon as possible is so appealing. But before you make that decision, I think there's one question worth asking. Are you running towards the life that you want, or are you only running away from the life that you don't want? Because those are two very different decisions. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you not to retire. I'm going to tell you not to retire until you've honestly thought through the things that happen after the paycheck stops. Because retirement isn't just a financial decision, it's a life decision. And there are a few things I wish I had spent more time thinking about before I retired. The first one could have the biggest financial impact: healthcare. Most retirement conversations focus on one type of question: do I have enough money? How much is in your 401k? How much can you withdraw each year? Will your investments last? But there's something I don't hear discussed nearly enough. The day you retire isn't just the day that you stop working, it's also the day that you stop receiving employer benefits. And for many people, healthcare is the biggest one. I didn't fully appreciate that until I was diagnosed with leukemia. Sitting in that doctor's office, I wasn't thinking about my retirement portfolio. I wasn't thinking about investment returns. I was thinking, thank goodness I have health insurance. And that health insurance came from my employer. Today, I'm still covered through my severance package, but that ends in January 2027. After that, I'm buying my own insurance. And I've already started looking at plans, and they are not cheap. Before I got sick, I thought retirement planning was mostly about saving enough money. Now I realize healthcare has to be part of that plan from the start, especially if you're thinking about retiring early, because you can do everything else right. Save aggressively, invest wisely, keep your expenses low, and one unexpected healthcare issue can completely change your retirement plan. I'm not saying healthcare should stop you from retiring. I'm saying you should know exactly what your plan is before you leave your job. The second thing I think people underestimate is what happens when your paycheck stops. Everyone talks about whether your portfolio can survive retirement. Very few people talk about whether you can handle retirement emotionally. At the time of recording this video, I have close to around 880,000 between my retirement accounts, brokerage account, HSA, and cash. My monthly expenses are around $2,000. Now, if you looked at those numbers, you would probably say, okay, maybe he's okay. He's in good shape. And many days, I agree. But when you're working and the market drops $30,000, it hurts. But you know another paycheck is coming. You know you're still earning money. When you're retired, that same drop feels different because now your mind starts thinking, that's money I may need to live on. A few weeks ago, I sold about $5,000 of an investment. It was up more than 700%. A year ago, I would have been excited. I would have looked at that and thought, whoa, that was a great investment. But after retiring, I kept thinking about that $5,000, not because I needed the money. I didn't. It just felt different. When you're working, your investments are helping you build wealth. When you're retired, your investments are helping support your life. And I don't think enough people talk about that difference. So ask yourself this. If your portfolio dropped 25% shortly after you retired, would you be okay? Not just by looking at the numbers, would you actually feel okay? Because that is something worth thinking about before you retire. The next thing I think people underestimate is what they're actually giving up when they retire early. I hear people say all the time, don't waste another year working. And I understand why people say that. Life is short. None of us know how much time we have. But I think there's another side of that conversation that doesn't get discussed enough. One more year of work can be worth a lot, not just because of your paycheck. Think about everything that comes with it. Another year of employer retirement matching contributions, another year of Social Security earnings, another year of HSA contributions, another year where your investments can continue growing without you needing to take money out of it. When I retired, I knew I was walking away from all those things, and I was okay with it. But I think it's important to understand the trade-off, because once you retire, you can go back and collect those benefits that you decide to give up. So before you retire, ask yourself, what is one more year actually worth? Maybe you look at the numbers and you decide it's not worth staying. That's okay. Maybe you decide another year gives you more security. And that's okay too. The important thing is to make that decision with your eyes wide open. Now, here's the one that surprised me the most. And honestly, I don't think enough people talk about it. If you've watched retirement videos for any length of time, you've probably seen comments like these. My dad worked until 65, retired, and passed away a year later. My neighbor never got to enjoy retirement. Life is short. Retire as soon as you can. And I understand why those comments connect with people, especially if you're unhappy at work. If you have a stressful job, a difficult boss, a workplace that drains you every day, I understand why retirement sounds like the answer. You just want your time back. And honestly, I don't blame you. But before you retire, I think there's one question worth asking. What are you retiring to? Because here's something that I didn't expect. Even though I loved my job, even though I was ready for a different chapter, I realized work gave me more than just a paycheck. It gave me a routine. It gave me something to focus on. It gave me people to talk to. It gave me a reason to get up and start my day. And when that ended after 19 years, I was excited. I was thinking about freedom. No more meetings, no more deadlines, no more Monday mornings. And I still enjoy that freedom. But what I didn't think about was what my days would actually look like afterward. You see, for almost 20 years, if someone asked me, so what do you do? I had an easy answer. Then after I retired, someone asked me that question, and I actually paused. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, it just felt strange. For most of my adult life, work was a big part of my daily routine, and suddenly it wasn't. And that was something that I never really thought about before retiring. So, before you retire, don't just think about what you are leaving, think about what you are going to do with your time. What will your days look like? Who will you spend time with? What will give you something to look forward to? Because having more time sounds great, and it is, but you also need something meaningful to fill that time. And this is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned so far. I thought once my financial plan said I was ready, I would automatically feel ready. But that didn't happen right away. I had run the numbers over and over. I knew I could afford to retire. And I still believe I made the right choice. But there have been mornings where I opened Excel and looked at the retirement numbers that I've already checked before, not because everything changed, but because I just wanted reassurance. I was used to having a routine. I was used to knowing what my week looked like. And then suddenly that all changed. And I think that's something a lot of people underestimate. We spend years preparing financially for retirement, but we don't always prepare for what everyday life will actually feel like after we leave work. So here I am, retired at 51, telling you not to retire. But let me be clear, I'm not saying retirement is a mistake. I don't regret retiring. If I had to make the decision again, I would make the same choice. What I'm actually saying is this: don't retire just because you're tired of working. Don't retire just because you can't wait to leave your job. Don't retire until you've thought through what comes next. Have you thought about healthcare, especially if you want to retire early? Have you thought about how you'll feel when your paycheck stops? Have you thought about what you're giving up by leaving work earlier? Have you thought about what your life will look like after work? Because retiring is easy to think about. Preparing for retirement is a part most people skip. So do you have a plan for healthcare? Do you Can you handle watching your investments go up and down when your paycheck stops? Do you know what you're retiring to? Are you ready for your life to look different? And if you thought through all those questions, if you've prepared financially and emotionally, then I agree. I agree with everyone else. Retire as soon as you can. Just don't confuse wanting to retire with being ready to retire, because those are two very different things. And I think that difference matters. What are your thoughts on retiring as soon as you can? Let me know in the comments below. I don't actually believe retiring has to be an all or nothing decision. Before I retired, I spent 3 years slowly stepping away from work. I went from working 5 days to 4 days, then to three, then to 2 days right before the layoff. And that transition taught me a lot about what retirement would actually feel like. So click on the on-screen video to hear the details of that experience, and I'll see you in the next video.